I did run down to Wegmans right before this to get coffee because we were out of that. That was a big problem.
Well,
And
how do
this
you wake up in the morning and know that that's when you discover it? Because that's like I have
Yeah.
nightmares about that.
Well, I make my coffee the night before so that I can get up in the morning and just go and brew it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I live by the minute, people. every new minute's a surprise, one way or the other. No, we knew yesterday because Lisa goes, "Do we have coffee in the morning?" I said, "Yep, absolutely," because I knew I did. And when I made coffee yesterday, I said, "Well, that's the end of it." And here we are. So
That's cool. A good thing there's Wegmans in this world. You know what I'm saying? Do you guys in your
I'm wondering.
families?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ryan, I'm wondering if we should have 2 ad breaks, like 2 separate places.
Yes. Yeah. I think that'd be kind of a fun place to break up the action. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. I hadn't considered that.
Oh man, I'm glad we had this talk.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna. It's like Drew said. I live by the minute, people.
Mm-hmm.
it's the best way to live.
He's a minute man.
Don't want no short man. No, don't. What's Missy Elliott's Minute Man? I was thinking of a different. Never mind. Okay.
Oh, then would that make his lovely wife Minute Maid?
Hey, let's kick this off. You guys ready?
Yeah. Drew?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I was born ready.
Minute to minute.
Living by the minute.
That way you're never not ready.
100.
I'm Bert.
I'm Drew.
I'm Ron.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the 100 Albums Podcast, where we discuss the ins, the outs, and the absurdities of a poster that depicts 100 seemingly random albums. The only music podcast in which we don't actually play any of the music that we talk about. Hey guys, it might not be the right time. I might not be the right one, but there's something between us I want to pod.
Jesus.
Not my strongest. Hey, welcome.
Welcome,
everyone. We're happy that you've found us. We're still going through 100 albums that appear on a poster that Drew got from his wife as a gift. We went through this project by listening to and reviewing 2 albums a week for a year and sharing our thoughts and reactions with each other via video chat. Once we were done, we thought that it might be fun to just turn this into a podcast. So let's get into album number 23 from the poster.
23.
Yeah, 23. We're nearly a quarter of the way there. Discovery by Daft Punk. Vibe check, guys. What are your first impressions?
Ready to boogie. That's my vibe.
That's a good vibe.
I know, right? I mean, I don't dance. People tend to call EMS thinking I'm having a seizure.
I thought you were making a Genesis reference there for a second.
But I like this album. This is a good album for me to clean house. It's upbeat. It's got a good beat. I dig it.
To me, Daft Punk could do no wrong. It's a spectrum of better or not as better, but love them, love the record, and was very happy to see them on the poster.
Vertislow?
Yeah, I love this album. I loved it back then. I love it now. You know, we'll get into kind of the deeper dive on the music aspect of things, but it's just one of those records that it brings a smile to your face. It gets your toe tapping. I think it's interesting how often Ron's vibe check has to do with doing house chores, but
hey, I got chores. Get off my lawn.
It's good to clean house too. All right, but no,
he's got choring to do.
Wait, speaking of your lawn, Ron, I can't help but be distracted. There is a bunch of nude men with bow ties around there. They're digging through the snow because we have feet of snow up here, but they're trying to find grass to cut. Do you know anything about this? It's like a
nude men with bow ties.
I mean, I have inside
like
things I have to do, and so I have to outsource my outside chores.
There you go.
We have sponsors, so I would be a fool not to utilize my sponsors.
Right. Or that's a good point.
Yeah.
Right.
I gotta tell you, Daft Punk for me, I have such a vivid memory of the first time I heard them. and I've been in love with them ever since. I took a road trip up to Rochester, New York to visit my friend Steven at RIT. And I was in his dorm room hanging out with him and his new friend, who is now a friend of mine, named Trapper. And Trapper's like, you got to hear this. And he dropped Homework open on it. And I had never really heard anything like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I went out and immediately bought the CD.
Yeah.
And I think I've been in love with them ever since.
Yeah. Awesome. So, background. Tomás Bangalter and Guy Manuel de Homem Cristo, who for the rest of the podcast, our intents and purposes, will refer to them as Thomas and Guimon, because that's kind of what they go by. They met in 1987 while attending Lycée Carnot, a secondary school in Paris. They shared a love of film and all things creative. This led to the formation of their first band called Darlin in 1992. Also included a guy by the name of Laurent Brankowitz. The name Darlin is a reference to the Beach Boys song of the same name. Thomas on bass, Guimon on guitar and vocals, and Laurent performed drums. They played a couple of shows in the United Kingdom. Please, if you have the opportunity, go listen to Untitled 18 by Darlin. You can find on YouTube, you can find demos that they did as an early band. It includes a guitar strumming sample from Starman by David Bowie, and you can see where, after Darlin dissolves and Daft Punk forms, you can see where they're getting some of these early sampling influences. So they were out playing a couple of shows and trying to get things going in the United Kingdom. A negative review in Melody Maker subsequently dubbed the music Daft Punky Trash. And that's where they eventually got their name, Daft Punk. Darlin soon disbanded. Laurent Brankowitz formed a different band called Phoenix. Thomas and Guimon take inspiration from that critical Melody Maker review and formed the duo Daft Punk. In 1993, while at a rave in Euro Disney, they slipped a demo, which would be the foundation of The New Wave, a limited release 1994 single, to a couple of producers. They hit the studio in 1995 and recorded Da Funk, which was released as a single. They signed to Virgin Records in 1996, but this is interesting stuff. Their record deal with Virgin stipulated that they licensed their tracks to the major label through their production company, Daft Tracks. They controlled every single piece of creativity about their career, which is, it'll come up later, but it's amazing. From an interview with Donna Adcock at Yahoo Music in 2004, Thomas said, quote, "We weren't interested in the money, so we turned down labels that were looking for more control than we were willing to give up. In reality, we're more like partners with Virgin. We write everything. We do all the creative. We say exactly how it's going to be recorded. There is no compromise." They had creative control of everything, including album artwork. They were the ones who were deciding who was going to do the artwork and what it would look like and that kind of thing.
It's a sweet deal.
It's a sweet deal. Yeah. And super smart. And that's because of Thomas' father, who was also a musician in the 70s, kind of like during the disco era. And he had some really bad interactions with record companies, became disillusioned. And when his son was getting into the business, it was like, okay, here's what you need to do. You need to make sure you have control of everything. In addition to performing original songs, they used vinyl records from their collection, as they were known for incorporating numerous styles of music into their DJ sets when they were out performing live. They released their debut album, Homework, in 1997. It was a synthesis of techno, house, acid house, and electro styles that were widely acclaimed as highly influential dance albums in the 1990s. They combined many styles of music with elements of rave culture. The most successful single from Homework was Around the World, which was one of their big kind of breakthrough kind of singles. A quick aside, in 2017, Colin Morris did a study called Are Song Lyrics Getting More Repetitive? He looked at over 15,000 songs that appear on the Billboard Hot 100 between 1958 and 2017, and Around the World was, as you might imagine, number one for having the most repetitive lyrics, since the lyrics are around the world. And that's it. The Rockefeller Skank came in number 2, in case you're curious. I came about that listening to Rob Harvilla's 60 Songs That Explain the 90s podcast when he talked about Around the World. So this album specifically, Discovery, is the second studio album by Daft Punk. It was released on March 12th, 2001 on Virgin Records. It marked a shift from the Chicago house vibe of Homework to a style more heavily inspired by disco, post-disco, garage house, R&B, a lighter vibe. Homework had a little bit kind of crunchier, more industrial kind of feel, so to speak. Thomas described the album as exploration of song structures, musical forms, childhood nostalgia, hence the kind of heavier use of sampling. The album was recorded at Thomas' home in Paris between 1998 and 2000. I mentioned the sampling. For the music videos, they developed a concept around sci-fi in the music industry. This concept they developed was inspired by a shared love of Japanese anime. They collaborated with, and I apologize, I'm going to probably not get the name right, but Leiji Matsumoto, and they produced a film called Interstellar 5555, The Story of the Secret Star System. The film tells a story of the abduction and rescue of an extraterrestrial pop band, serves as a visual companion to Discovery. So this concept album is the soundtrack for this film, and there's no dialogue. So it's almost kind of like a rock opera, if you will, in air quotes. It's definitely worth a watch. I watched this. It's about an hour long. It's the length of the album. So you're listening to the album again while you're watching this, but it's a great allegory on the music industry. The villain in the film is this record producer who steals the band from this other planet, brings them to Earth, remakes them how he wants them to be seen, packages them, and forces them like through mind control to perform on Earth. Really, really interesting. If you haven't seen it, I'm not a big anime guy, but I was talking to my kids about it, and they were like, "Ooh, this sounds really cool," because they're way into anime. Production notes: Daft Punk produced all of it. This is all Daft Punk. That's it.
That's easy.
It's easy enough, right? I've got a whole bunch of stuff here about samples that we can get into in a little bit. Chart placement debuted on the Billboard 200 chart on March 31st, 2001. It spent 31 weeks on that chart. It peaked at number 23. One More Time is the only top 100 song that they had. It peaked at number 61 on the Billboard Hot 100.
I'll just pause you for a second.
Yeah, that's a great place to stop, and let's hear it.
So I actually didn't do a whole lot of exterior research because there's a lot out there. But there was one article that really caught my eye just because of the title, which is Daft Punk is finally at my house, which was actually in GQ magazine. So that should tell you that would not be normally a source I would reach to. But this was actually from 2013, right before Random Access Memories came out. In fact, the title for Random Access Memories hadn't even been released yet. But this is what I liked about this moment here is they talk about their own music in terms of its trajectory and where this album fits in. So it says, they say it's hard to talk about the new record without talking about the old ones. Homework. We did it, and it was a way to say to rock kids like, electronic music is cool. Bing Alter says Discovery was the opposite of saying to the electronic kids, rock is cool, you know?
Yeah.
And he goes into some stuff about Human After, which is interesting too. But I like that kind of dichotomy because you can hear the difference between those two albums and their approach.
What I think is really interesting too, and I didn't include this in my rundown because as I messaged you guys yesterday, there's so much to talk about how we pack it all in. But one of the things that I found really interesting is early on Homework and Discovery, the use of sampling, particularly in Discovery, but even a little bit on Homework, the use of the sampling is a nod to their nostalgia. It's songs that they were, in the 70s and in the 80s, kind of disco and that kind of stuff. And then when you get to Random Access Memories, instead of sampling, they're like, hey, Nile Rodgers, why don't you just come into the studio and record with us? So like not only are they not sampling as much, but they're bringing those artists just straight up recording new sounds with those artists. And that's kind of that dichotomy of old versus new and incorporating both in what they're, the content they're putting out. So, yeah. I had some stuff here. Again, the sampling is just, there's so much to talk about. But I'll just say that context to the album in their discography, it's their second highest selling record, Random Access Memories that Ryan just referenced. That's the one with Get Lucky. You couldn't go anywhere and not hear that song for like a summer. That one sold 4.1 million albums worldwide. Discovery then sold 2.8 million. Homework came in third place with 1.5 million. And we don't have to get into it, but the Tron Legacy soundtrack, 1.2 million records was sold. That is a work of art in my mind. I don't know if you guys have seen Tron Legacy. It's a great film. But the fact that they were tapped initially to do a single, and they were like, hey guys, we'd love to. This is in the time coming up to Random Access Memories where they were actually working more with live instrumentation as opposed to synthesizers and sampling and that kind of stuff. And so they were like, now they're writing for orchestral arrangements and things like that. If you haven't listened to the Tron Legacy soundtrack, I highly recommend it.
They made that movie be what it was.
Yeah. Oh,
in all ways.
Yeah. Yeah. The music. So, yeah, I'm worried about Tron Ares that's going to be coming out. It's in production right now. And Trent Reznor's doing the soundtrack. So not bad. But I was
him and Atticus then, yeah.
I was really hoping they were going to bring Daft Punk out of retirement to get him to do the soundtrack.
I mean, but Tron has that history, right? Because the first one was Wendy Carlos.
Yep.
And that soundtrack is also incredible.
Yes. Well, I think that's one of those movies, both the original Legacy and hopefully the newer one. It's one of those movies that it's like Star Wars. When people talk about the movie, they also talk about the music because it's kind of, interwoven or whatever. So, as I mentioned, Discovery, their second highest selling album, but still very much the one that I think brought them into the mainstream. Homework had a couple of tunes that I think got some airplay and that kind of stuff, but in America in particular, Discovery was really the one that put them on everybody's kind of watch list, so to speak. So that's what with the exception of the sample stuff, that's what I've got for research. Other stuff that you guys have, Ryan?
Well, I just when I was looking over people's reviews, and there's a lot of chatter about I wish I could go back in time and change my review.
Yeah.
Because it's aged better than it did or something like that, right? There was one, I didn't see him refute his review, but in The Guardian, Alex Petrides, in his column of CD of the Week, he gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It's the lowest rating out there I could find on this.
Wow. Is there any argument for that?
I didn't read his argument because I don't know. I guess I should have. That would have been more interesting than me just pointing out the rating. But but here we are. I do like that this is also, in terms of, Bert, you talked about control. This was the moment where they made the switch to the robots.
Yeah.
This album. Before that, I think they were like either just not engaging with the media, or they wore like Halloween masks and stuff like that.
That's correct.
And the robot thing, I think, culminating with Coachella, seemed to have solidified that identity for them, which is so cool.
I'm glad you meant that. So I read an article by Piers Martin that appeared in Vice. And it's called Daft Punk, The Birth of the Robots. And it talks about, it's a behind the scenes look at the creation of the helmets that they wind up wearing that have they can project words on the visor and that kind of stuff. Really interesting article. I didn't include a bunch of this stuff, but basically, Daft Punk became robots on the 9th of September, 1999. The date, 9/9/99, is significant, according to Thomas, because this was the date the little-known 9999 bug corrupted the French duo's hardware. Quote, "We were doing a track and our sampler crashed and exploded and there were sparks. We were hurt a little bit, so we had to make a little surgery and then we became robots." So this was this is a real thing. Apparently, a precursor to the Millennium Bug, the 9999 virus, conveniently deleted the track they were working on. A quote from Bang Alter: "Everything was erased. We had to start all over again. We don't keep a record of the time when we make music." So it's kind of, some of it I think is tongue in cheek, but some of it is like, hey, whatever. And this became, I have this in later on in Good, Bad, Ugly, the mystique of these guys in helmets on stage doing a set or as DJs or eventually performing their own kind of, original work. The Coachella, I'm glad you brought that up too, Ryan. I haven't gone. Apparently you can go out on YouTube and watch that. And like, that's a seminal performance that is like, it's this huge deal. And if you were there, it was like life changing and stuff. So I want to go and see what kind of the buzz of the pyramid, right? I think that's a big piece of previously, like you said, they were putting on masks and things, but then they became robots, and that became kind of a part of their persona.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Through Random Access Memories.
In that same GQ article, they actually talked about it with their kind of again back to nostalgia. He said, I think it was I'm trying to remember which one of them said it, but a love of the Superman character, particularly that he could be Clark Kent and no one kind of knew what was going on, and kind of refers to their robot selves as that kind of switching onto a Superman kind of thing.
Right.
And the interviewer goes, don't you ever have those moments where like, I have to put on the fucking cape again? To which they said, after quite a bit of translation, they both said no. They said, Superman has to be Superman all the time. That's the difference.
Yeah.
They only have to be Daft Punk when they want to be.
Yeah.
Can you imagine though? Like, we've all played live music, at some point, some still do, but playing in a helmet and a mask, how freaking hot that's got to be, and how uncomfortable. Like, what is it?
Maybe it's air conditioned like the ones at Disney.
It is.
Well,
I'm sure
it is.
Or
It
Dead
became-
Mouse's helmet.
Yeah.
Is like the inside of it is ungodly.
Yeah.
I can't imagine playing with the weight of that on my head and all that stuff. Like,
Yeah,
that
this
just
Vice
sounds
article
really
talks.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, this Vice article talks about that. So they had a special effects person. So they went to Los Angeles. They were being made in LA by a special effects operation. They went to Los Angeles to have them fitted and all this stuff. And of course, they, in the article, they're like, quote, it's better for our circuitry, nice oil and good maintenance. It's rainy in Paris, but it's nice in LA. But yeah, there are pictures here where you can actually see the hoses that they wear, like a backpack or something, and the hoses that come up to the back of the helmet so that they can kind of climate control the interior of it. Cause yeah, you're doing a 2-hour set or something.
Jumping around.
It's gonna get
sweating and
hot.
all that
It's gotta
stuff.
get
Yeah.
hot. So yeah, absolutely.
And where's the conspiracy theorists here? Because I feel like they should say, well, the reason for the helmets is so that you could have a whole team of DJs go out and do a tour while these guys sit back at home.
Mm-hmm.
Rich.
They actually did that once.
Franchise it out.
I listened to the One Song podcast, and they were talking about, Get Lucky, the one song but they were in the conversation, they were talking about all of Daft Punk. And apparently in the process of recording, I think it was Random Access Memories, they were supposed to do a show and they had to leave and go to the recording studio to get something done. And so they had they had 2 other people stand in and just wear the helmets, and like no one knew. I don't know if that's just an anecdote that's true or not, but yes, absolutely. The conspiracy theories could be, could go on and on, I suppose. So yeah, there's 18 different Daft Punk, artists or whatever.
Well, I mean, like if you're going to make a movie, the easiest way to be able to swap out your lead actor for a stunt person is to put a helmet on him.
Yep. Okay, so hey, let's take a quick break. And here I actually got a new sponsor this week.
Whoa! So does that mean another one? Who's Ron? Are you the only one that hasn't found a sponsor for us yet?
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
Well, you found us the shirtless community helped us find. That was through you.
The Chippendales.
They're working hard out there now.
Oh, I bet they are hard.
Oh,
Well,
it's like 15 below where Drew lives. So I mean,
It's an interesting sight.
What'd you get for us, Bert?
So yeah, today's it's I tell you what, it's it's interesting. Our podcast has an explicit rating on it, which is probably a good thing, because today's episode of the 100 Albums podcast is brought to you by OnlyFans. And I tell you what, it's a good thing that explicit rating is on our podcast. This ain't no family show, you know what I mean? Ron alone single-handedly accounts for 90% of our explicit content.
I was going to say that was a perfect opportunity to say we have an explicit rating because Ron's here.
Exactly. And so it's not much, I wasn't all that surprised when OnlyFans reached out and inquired about sponsoring our show. After a little bit of back and forth, we came to an arrangement, signed them up, and they sent over this copy. So greetings, listeners of the 100 Albums podcast. Is it too warm in your living room? Come on down to OnlyFans. Is the floor damp in your basement? Come on down to OnlyFans. Have some issues that you need to air out? Come on down to OnlyFans. OnlyFans is the only shop in town that sells only fans. Our proprietor and only employee, Fanny, will take great care to make sure that you leave with only the perfect fan for your needs and the wind at your back. There may be other businesses out there called OnlyFans, but they are not us. And we beg you, please don't confuse us with those other businesses. The only thing that is blowing around here is the air. If you need a fan or any product that makes wind, come on down to OnlyFans. It's a breeze to find us, just off Route 65 in Branson, Missouri, next to Parakeet Pete's waterfront zipline.
Oh.
Thank you so much, OnlyFans.
I know where that is. And there's probably a good need for fans down in Branson. It gets quite sweaty in the summer.
It's sweaty, yes. So there you go. That's thank you, OnlyFans. We appreciate your
and thank you, Fanny,
sponsorship, and thank you, Fanny, doing God's work out there.
Yeah. Well, I've not been there, but already I'm a big fan.
Oh God.
Okay. Time for good, bad, ugly. On or listen, what strikes you about the album, guys? What's good? What's bad? What is ugly?
These guys are masters in using samples, using technology. I could listen to their albums in general, not just this one, and just sit and study. Where we talked about in the previous episode with The Prodigy, not something I would sit down and actively listen to. This is an album that's still electronica and kind of dance music, where I would actually sit down and try and dissect it and look at different parts. It is much more sonically interesting, which I think is beautiful. There's only a couple instances of ugly, and that's just a matter of taste and preference. The songs that are too slow, okay, too long. Tell me that's not a Michael Jackson song. When you listen to that song, you can hear Michael Jackson singing it. And I'm not a huge late Michael Jackson fan, but I would have loved to have heard him do a version of this, because I think he could have done a very, very good job of it. The sounds are wonderful. They're interesting. I read a quote where, they were trying to make synthesizers sound like guitars like synthesizers.
I saw that exact article, Ron.
Yeah. And I mean, when you listen to it, in Aerodynamic, that's a synthesizer, but it sounds like a guitar, and it's freaking great. I mean, they are just so damn good at what they do. I just can't say it enough.
Well, they're really dialed in. These are guys that are not afraid to really work hard. I mean, the space between albums tells you that they're not just phoning it in. They're really spending time down to, the second to make sure the timing of everything feels right. The transitions to things feel right. That the samples are all in the right place. And that's hard to find, because with that level of success, there can be so much pressure to just create content that you lose control of your standards. And I don't think this is a band that did that.
No. Like on Face to Face, in the verses, how they chopped the words and the sounds, like that's someone sitting there going, okay, we need to tweak this just a little bit more to make it that good. Like, I would imagine these guys outside of music are incredibly smart. That just really seems to come through the
100%.
music.
Yeah.
Let's see. Something About Us. That could be a Jamiroquai song. I really got that vibe off it, and dug that. They do get a little repetitive though. Superheroes, that vocal is just too repetitive for me.
Form and function.
Yeah.
The same thing with Half-Life, or excuse me, High Life. It's those two instances weren't my favorite, but kind of like we've talked about with a lot of other albums, even though it's not my favorite and I don't care for it, it's still pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I think, Ron, I'm with you on a few of those comments. Again, I love Daft Punk, and I won't say anything negative about them. I have no bads. But what I think this album is not my favorite of theirs, and what I think it shows to me is you've got the full spectrum of a band's lifespan, right up to when they retired, indefinitely. But because this has got great work on it, great moments, hard work. I mean, the best thing about these guys is that they started in their bedroom, 4-tracking it like we used to play around with in college. I mean, Ryan had this rap group, I had this rap group, things were going well for us both. Those days, and these guys took that and made it and succeeded with it. And then the coolest part is, and I didn't really know this about their facts, is that they retain control of everything throughout. In modern times, some people nowadays can get that kind of trajectory for themselves through YouTube. They didn't have YouTube. They had to work so hard to get there. Who is it? Who's the guy that completely drove his whole career through YouTube and got huge? Maybe 7 years ago. Can't think of his name off the top of my head. No,
there's a lot, many.
Yeah, I was going to say there's more than one.
Yeah, but I know. But there was something huge. I can't. We don't need to go down that path. But these guys didn't have any of those accessible points in the '90s to do that with, and yeah, I mean, their music is so good. But where I agree with Ron is I think in this earlier stage they had a lot of songs on this album that just were like, here's an idea, it didn't develop, and it's decent backgroundy stuff, but not all of them developed into full-blown things. I love every one of them, but Crescendos was one of them that just kind of, it's a cool hook. I said it should be like a hype moment in a bigger song. I just, that's all. It's not even a criticism. It's just when you look at Random Access Memories, every single minute of that to me is just perfection. And they really they climbed up to that moment. And of course Tron is a soundtrack. So I think that's a different conversation, but yeah,
that's a great point, Drew. And I know they were really afraid of the drop of Random Access Memories because they've been in the business for like 20 years at that point. And usually at that point, your music is going to be a disappointment to your fans.
Right. Like,
and they did not do that.
Well, and I think that it went even further than their fan. It got them new fans because of the newer. I mean, they also had Pharrell Williams, and like there's some other things going on there that I think made them even more accessible. But yeah, that concern is there. And then I think the success of Random Access Memories surpassed all expectations they had and fans, I think. Yeah.
This one, Discovery, to me, it was such an interesting jump because Homework is very different from this. Almost, I don't want to say academic, but it certainly captures a different side of them, a technological side. And then from here forward, I feel like Discovery is that turning point where they embrace more of a dance disco concept, and you can't help it. It feels good. Like when I put this on the other day, this isn't my favorite of their albums, by the way, either, but I like it a lot. But I put it on when we were getting ready for this, and I was like, heck yeah. It felt good. The whole thing.
There's some really funky stuff on here too. Yeah.
And I don't want to knock it like I often do for being more accessible than Homework. I think this is a good version of the band, and it actually goes to. If have you guys listened to the Alive 2007
Yeah.
live double album?
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
That for me, that might be my favorite.
Both Ryan, both you and Drew have said this is not my favorite Daft Punk record. So Ryan,
But-
you're saying that the Alive one might be yours?
It's really good, but you can't have it without this because some of the songs from the live concert obviously are from this. Anyway, I just think it's a great success, and I want to point out my hot take and kind of get it out of the way because it's not that hot. But this is a band that technically only had 4 studio albums, and my take is that any of those landing on the poster would have been both okay for at least all of us, and 2, cause for debate for all of us. And what a tribute, like a lot of the bands that we listen to, I mean, on this poster, I have felt like, man, why did they pick this one? Or why did they pick this, not even just the band, but that album?
Yeah.
And I don't think of those 4 studio albums, I don't think anyone would have batted an eye in this group about why that belonged on the poster.
No, I don't think so.
The only thing that is confusing to me from the poster perspective, and I don't want to get into the poster secret of the poster, but Random Access Memory has a better image for the poster.
It does. Yes. Well, no, here's what's really interesting. When I had this on CD back in the 90s, it has a new album artwork now because of the re-release that happened in 2024 or whenever it was that this album was re-released.
Oh yeah, they gave it the anime face.
They gave it the anime. Those are the characters from the Interstellar that I talked about earlier. And I didn't realize that until I was like, oh, this is different than what it looked like in my CD collection or whatever. So, but you're right. I think Random Access Memories has better album artwork for the poster for the purposes of the poster. Yeah.
All right. So I have a question concerning the anime and the music. So I watched this on YouTube, which is synced up with the anime movie, which I will watch because it is cool as hell. And I'm not a big anime guy.
Yep.
But on purely just the album listening, do they have like thunderstorm samples in their tires screeching stuff from the movie? Okay, cool.
So in the movie, there's no dialogue, but they did add some sound effects for when they're in a vehicle, the tires screeching, that kind of stuff. So good question, Ron. But
which was funny,
that's not actually from the album. Yeah.
Right. Because I'm listening to the album, and my 5-year-old Waylon loves cars, trucks, and all that stuff. And he heard the sound effects from the movie, and he comes running into the room. And I'm like, "What's wrong, dude?" And he's like, "I heard a sound in here, tires screeching. What are you listening to?" And I had to tell him it was an album, and it just had sound effects in it.
And then he asked you to put Prodigy back on.
He was like, "Daddy, can you play that bitch song again?"
So Bert, you probably have these stats up. And I'm curious of the songs on this album, how many of them were chart topping hits? Because I feel like maybe at least 4, if not 5 of these seem to have really permeated culture.
Yeah.
But that could also be me misremembering things.
Well, One More Time was the only top 100 single.
What?
Really? Not harder
Really?
or fast? Really?
Hold on one second. Let me.
Because I would have said harder, faster, stronger.
And Digital Love, I thought was
so that's Billboard Hot 100. So that's, as you can imagine, there's dance charts. There's a whole bunch of different kind of
Britney Spears
genre. Yeah, right. So
98 Degrees.
Yeah.
Dave Coolio's comedy album.
So One More Time, Billboard Hot Dance Songs chart. Face to Face reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot Dance Club chart in 2004.
Really?
Yeah, no. The fact that Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger is not showing, at least I'm not seeing it charted here.
That's truly amazing.
It's really interesting because I will bet you that Kanye West, who used Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, which uses Cola Bottle Baby by Edwin Birdsong.
Mm-hmm.
Like follow the through line, right? I guarantee that Kanye's song probably charted. So, yeah, no, they're surprisingly little charting of singles for this for songs off the album, if that
Oh,
makes sense.
I'm just gonna keep Bert working here.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
On Digital Love, what 80s sitcom did they sample for that?
On Digital Love,
Yeah, because that whole intro just screams 80s sitcom intro.
it's a George Duke song called "I Love You More,"
Huh.
and that's the only sample. So, Drew, you were going to say something, then I'm going to get into my good, bad, ugly.
well, I can't remember what I was going to say, but on that Digital Love, you know, one of the interesting notes, I don't want to forget to say this, that I had on there was, you know, we're listening to, last week we did Prodigy. We talked about the LFO enveloping between throughout these synth modules here. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I was desperately trying to claw my way back. And here, obviously, with Daft Punk, a master group of the EDM output scene in their own right. This song, and you hear just constant sweeping of that, you know, LFO throughout all of this music. This song, I feel like, keeps it just below Coming Clear the whole song. The only time you hear the kind of sun parting through the clouds where it becomes clarified sound is when the drums come in. It's a very interesting technique because you're I feel like you're constantly waiting for it to open up that filter,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't, and it's so cool. I'm like, man, that was a great just choice, you know, just because I don't even know what the motivation was other than to do something different. But
Well,
I
it
thought
creates
awesome.
anticipation for
That's
sure.
right. That's right.
Constant,
You're waiting for
obviously.
it, just like in the build up to a beat drop. It's the same
Mhm.
way when you're just tweaking that envelope a little bit and it's not quite clear. Yeah, you're absolutely
And
right.
it's that
It
kind of
just stays
musicianship.
Yeah,
I mean that they display. I mean, even the vocoder work they do,
yeah,
where they choose to place the octave, is always really interesting to me. You
Yeah.
know, and it's always really smart. I don't know
Yeah.
that. By the way,
And
Drew, what's your obsession with the light funky ones?
what?
You keep bringing up LFO.
Oh, I was like, I don't remember talking about funk yet. Yeah, no, it's and that song, the vocoder use is a whole other conversation throughout this album, and,
Yeah.
and at times it could have been a talk box, or at least it went to the sounding like a talk box. It's always, that always gets me. That's almost all you have to do sometimes to get my attention. But there's an amazing synth solo in that Digital Love, by the way, too.
Yeah.
And that's one of the talk boxy sounding tunes or instrument moments.
So my good, bad, ugly here. Good breakdown in the last 30 seconds of Aerodynamic. Just love the vibe there. The helmets we talked about, kind of combining that robot and human elements. Right, they're making music that's very human. It's emotional. It's creative, but they're using a lot of technology. And just kind of what we were talking about a second ago. I vividly recall having conversations with people in this time period who were saying things like, well, this isn't music because they're not using real instruments and da, da, da. And no, absolutely not. Like, you can make music with anything, right? It's all about that creativity and that kind of stuff. The helmets we talked about, just kind of how they're putting everything together, all the samples, the technique that they use for sampling throughout their whole career, but just really apparent on this record, is so good. If you compare Daft Punk and the way they use sampling to how like Puff Daddy does or did in this same kind of time period, same kind of era, you know, I wrote in my notes here that Puff Daddy's is hacky. Like, you're just taking a song and kind of putting it, using the music from that song and putting new words over top of it. I'm oversimplifying, but for the purposes of my illustration here. What Daft Punk does, if you look at, for example, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, they use one sample. There's only one song they're sampling in there, and it's Cola Bottle Baby by Edwin Birdsong. But the way they chop it up, and they're taking a piece from here and a piece from here and a piece from here, and they're rearranging it and putting it in a different order. And also, this is the 90s. So the technology that they had to do this was not what it is now. It's just amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing. If you can, and then kind of looking at the whole album in its totality, look at Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, where there's one song. Look at Face to Face, where there are 20 different songs that are sampled in that one song, using that same kind of chopping technique. And then you look at Something About Us, which has 0 samples. It's completely original work. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 songs on this record that have 0 samples in them.
Which ones?
Night Vision, because I knew you were going to ask, Ron. Night Vision, Something About Us, Voyager, Veritas Quo, and Short Circuit have 0 samples. So they probably weren't doing it intentionally, but it's a statement that says, hey, yes, we have this form of art we're using where we're taking other people's work and kind of sprinkling it into ours. But we've got the chops to do our own too. We don't have to do this, right? Something About Us, for the record, is one of my probably top 50 songs of all time. One of my favorite songs. I never tire of hearing it. If you're not familiar with Pamplemousse, they do a fantastic cover of it as well. So shout out there. But just what I wrote was contrast, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, Face to Face, and Something About Us. Holy shit. Like that's literally in my notes.
But with Voyager, I really would love to have heard vocals on that. I think it's a great song, but I think someone putting, a really nice lyric track over that would just be, the cherry on top.
So the last note I had in here in my good is the whole concept that resulted in the anime movie. So Voyager, you're absolutely right, wrong. It would be great to hear vocals, but when you see it in the context of the movie,
right,
it works.
Really?
Because so we're in good, bad, ugly. For the bad, I had it gets kind of repetitive at times, but not so much that it hurts the record. No ugly. And one song you would remove to make this album better. I said, now that I've seen Interstellar, none, because they all fit in the story that is in this movie. By the way, Crescendos, somebody had mentioned Crescendos earlier. That's the name of the band when they're brought to Earth. Like, that's how they're marketed, as the Crescendos. It's just really, really slick. Also, Daft Punk makes an animated cameo in the movie because the Crescendos go to like an awards ceremony and Daft Punk is in the crowd and they've got their helmets on and they're putting words across the visors. It's just really, really, really slick. So to me, there is so little bad, 0 ugly, so little bad that I mean, as we kind of talked about at the top of the episode, this is just a really, really great album from a really, really great artist. And I haven't even gotten into all of the awesome samples. More Spell on You by Eddie Johns appears in One More Time. The Il Maquillage Lady by Sister Sledge in Aerodynamic. We talked about I Love You More by George Duke, Cola Bottle Baby. Can You Imagine by the Imperials in Crescendo. So there's just a ton of great 1970s. Most of them are 1970s. There's a little bit of 80s. So it's a lot of this, kind of retrospective and an homage to the music they listened to when they were younger. It's all so good.
But you wouldn't know. That's what kills me about Daft Punk.
Yeah.
They use so much, but it's not identifiable. Like, they hide that shit.
Yeah,
where,
some
like
of it's
you said,
unrecognizable.
And even the more adept samplers that are out there, throw in some turntablist and that kind of stuff, you can recognize it. And 9 times out of 10, one of the 4 of us will.
Yeah.
But with Daft Punk, it's like, what the fuck? Where was it?
Yeah.
Well, you brought up Puffy and what he did. And I would say also the Stevie that we talked about earlier with Gangster Paradise.
Yeah.
I feel like those they're beyond samples. That just becomes interpolation at that point. You are just putting lyrics over, not unlike the big hit right now, Lonesome Road by Machine Gun Kelly featuring Jelly Roll, which is, have you heard the song? Have you been able to escape it so far in your life?
I have escaped.
Haven't heard
it. It is John Denver's Country Roads.
Yeah. Come on.
Oh, fuck off. For real?
But with different lyrics.
Yeah.
Apparently, by the way, it took them over 2 years to make this song, which is somebody else's song. Sorry, as a musician, that just I can't handle it. That's so funny. Bert, you mentioned how much you like Something About Us. Would you say that song would be in your Mount Rushmore of Daft Punk songs?
Yes. Yes, it would.
Would it be shaped like a helmet-shaped rock?
Yeah, but in that case, is Mount Rushmore of Daft Punk only two faces?
That's all you
two
get.
heads?
Mm-hmm.
Two heads?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. Yes, it absolutely would. Absolutely. So, what else? Anything else for Good, Bad, Ugly?
Yeah, I just one more good about them. I think one of you mentioned calling them songs, and I think that the fact that we're referring to these tracks as songs just proves that they have moved on from just a functional dance form and electronic form into more of a songwriting style. And Bert, you mentioned a cover. These are coverable songs.
Yeah.
Which is not the case on most of Homework and most electronica, even of this period, I would say. I mean, but
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, they speaking of covering it, they definitely, you said Pamplemousse. What's another one? Scary Pockets. They'll take. They did the Get Lucky, I think, because the music that these guys did on the electronica tip, so to speak, can very easily be gone into the jam band tip, and I think that's why it's such good, so well received universally. Yeah. I've got more to say about the album with Good, Bad, Ugly stuff, but I interrupted Ron. What were you going to say?
No, dude, go ahead, boss.
Just, knowing that a lot of these songs were used as a soundtrack, were they written for the soundtrack? Or were they pulled out of this to make the soundtrack for the movie?
So
it would be a question I would
have.
Which
came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Was it a concept album from the start, or did
it's an important question to me.
So,
you do like eggs.
Yes. And chicken.
Mm-hmm.
With hot
So they, as best as I can tell, it was a concept kind of as they were making it, like as they were recording the songs. I don't know if they said, okay, we're going to sit down and write a concept album. I think it kind of came about organically. And then that's when they engaged hey, we can turn this into a movie, because the movie didn't come out until 2003, which I guess makes sense if you're like, you have to animate. Like, this is back still, I think, in it's very much a hand animated versus computer animated type of thing. Maybe, I don't know. I'm drawing some conclusions here, but so the research that I found doesn't explicitly say they set out to make a concept album or it became a concept album as they were going through it. Yeah.
Well, I just it's going to sound more critical than I mean it to, but there are definitely a handful of those songs in this album that to me are kind of just like hotel room wall art, but I love what they did, but it's like, it's okay, and then we
I love that description.
That's a great description. I'm going to start using that for other things.
Yeah. But it does. I mean, but but they're not bad for that reason. They just don't have a destination. They don't arrive at any points, and it's okay. It's just cool, like I said, to see what they did in the future of their career, still in our past. But to hit on some of the great things, man. I mean, Superheroes, that song, I was in my truck and I cranked it and just got the full drum and bass effect with all of this. I was just bathing in the sense of that tune, which was cool. Back to Something About Us. I wanted to bring that up. What I really liked about that song was it's got a 8-bar chord progression in it. So the phrase is twice as big as you're used to hearing in these songs, and it just keeps you going before you hear that. Okay, back to a new phrase, and that is a really cool technique that's hard to do when you're doing Ryan's favorite style of 4-chord songs. This isn't a 4-chord song anyway, but like just arching a bigger phrase just keeps you interested so much longer. And that was a good example of that. But also they got a great clean guitar. So they come in with this clean guitar in the end of it, with that solo. And it's just, I don't know, it's a very simplistic song that just hits. It's really nice. it's really successful, I think, as a tune. And love the Space Echo piano and Short Circuit like that. I need to get a Space Echo box so bad, but those are just great. It's such a cool, like that warbly, out of tune piano effect. It gets me every time. Man, there was one other thing I had to say about something on this album, but Night Vision qualifies for our repetitive theme of the flatted seventh major chord. They got that in there too. That keeps coming up here and there. Yeah. And I mean, that's got a neat progression too. I mean, and they're no slouches, man. They've got some 11 chords in that. Like I was playing through it last night going, this is a nice progression.
There's some jazz influence in there. I mean, there are definitely some jazzier chords that they're using, particularly in some of the non-sample heavy songs, where it's kind of they're leaning more into kind of their creations. But yeah, absolutely.
But I love that one too because it's another teaser because it gives you that at the end the turnaround chord like the F over G chord. You want to go back to C and it doesn't. It goes to the minor 2 chord and it's just like there's 3 revolutions of it I think through it. I don't know. I was really focused on that song last night when I was sitting at my piano, and it just keeps going not to the home place, and it's just like a kind of a rolling tumbler for me of
that's that same suspense that you were talking about with controlling the envelopes as well.
Yeah,
like they're really pulling on you. Yep,
techniques of people that know what they're doing.
I did kind of wish Short Circuit would have had a sample from Who's Johnny, but
Johnny 5. Johnny 5 is alive.
Johnny 5 is alive.
She said, Drew, you're describing some of it as artwork in a hotel. That reminds me of one of my favorite music reviews that I have had about my own music. I gave somebody a sample CD at their request of some of my music, and they're like, "Oh man, this was so great! It was really relaxing. I put it on and I went right to sleep." And I was like, "Awesome! That was my intent."
And they meant it as a compliment. That's all that matters.
I thought you were going to say they called it a tall glass of water.
All right. Hey, results and ratings, guys. Individual scores. I gave it a 9. Drew gave it a 9.5, and Ryan gave it an elusive 9.
Nice.
Ooh.
Average score was 9.17. We ranked this number 5 out of 100 albums. Ron, where would you
Short Circuit again? Number 5.
Number 5. Ron, what would you give it?
I'd go like 8.5. Okay. I mean, this is a solid album. I liked Random Access Memories touch better. I will check out the live. When it comes to dance music, it intrigues me about the live aspect to it and how they do it. And we'll have to do some research to it because in my head, it's perfect the way it is. So is it just them standing there dancing while playing the album, or do they, alter it like, turntablists, when they recreate it, they're fucking recreating it with the help of computers these days, unlike the old guys who would have crates behind them of albums flipping out. So just kind of curious about that.
When they appear in the movie Tron Legacy, we went to see it as a family at the theater, and my daughter and I were at the time and still are both big fans. And but at the moment we were really listening to a lot of Daft Punk together. We did a lot of traveling together. When I'd get her from her mom's and stuff, and Daft Punk was always on the radio, and they appeared, and it was like celebrities. It was like, oh my god, that's really them! Like they're on
the cameo, right?
Yeah. And they were the DJs in the club while that big fight was breaking out. It's so cool.
So second chance. Would anybody change their score? Feeling pretty solid where you are?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Let me ask you this though, Bert. If you were to go to a Daft Punk Discovery themed restaurant, what would that be? Listeners, I know you've got ideas because we've been hearing from 3 of you. So if you've got ideas on any of these restaurants, please go ahead and send those to 100 Albums Podcast at Bertislo. That's BERTISLO.org.
So close.
It's .gov.
.gov.
.net. I have, so it's going to be an upscale farm to table restaurant, and it's called One More Time, THYME.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Mine is a deli called Superheroes.
Nice.
I love it.
And
great.
by the
That's
way,
great.
you can also get a can of High Life while you're there.
It's a champagne of beers.
Oh man. I think what were you gonna say, Ron? You got a restaurant?
No. I got a hot take, but I don't have a restaurant.
Yeah, move to that. I don't have a good restaurant.
That's up.
Either.
Okay, hot take time. Hot take.
All right,
Who's
all
got a
right.
hot take?
So where Prodigy is dance music for kids, Daft Punk is dance music for the young, the old, and the restless.
Why are you bringing up the poor restless?
Hey, they got to move too. But no, seriously, this is mature music. Where Prodigy is, to me, aimed at younger people. It has more angst and everything else. This is like anybody can listen to this and get something out of it and have a good time, and that's not a bad thing at all.
Mm-mm.
So danceable.
No, I think that's a great take, Ron.
And listeners, if you're curious, listen to we had an episode prior to this on Prodigy that may lend to what Ron's after that, because they were just a bunch of punks. Are there any other hot takes?
I'm actually takeless this week, so yeah.
I have a couple comments that aren't hot takes, but they need to be said before we end this discussion, and I regret not bringing them up. They're more Daft Punk in general. Well, I'll say this about this album: the Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. I wonder how much of the virality of people doing the dance moves to it that someone created served the purpose of them gaining more and more interest in the public. So here's what I'm going with this. If you guys remember, earliest days of YouTube, not the first days of YouTube, but earliest days, people were doing they were writing the words on their hands in different parts of their bodies. And so they were doing dances, harder, better, faster, stronger was what the words they were writing. And so they were doing dances where they would expose that part and it would say the word to go with the lyrics. Do you remember this? You're all looking like you don't.
No.
It was a huge deal.
Vaguely remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So they would be in work it, do it, whatever, all the lyrics. And they were doing that move along with the video. And it was a really cool dance because, as we know, the lyrics, they say it nice and slow, like every other beat at the beginning, and then it goes to every beat. And so it gets faster. So people were making these dances to join in with those lyrics and then putting them on YouTube. This is maybe, this is way before Vine. I mean, this would be TikTok landed today. So I wonder if that really fired out a lot of their popularity gain at that time was the new viral video trends that were going on.
Well,
that was a comment. That was a comment I had to make. Look them up though; they're fun. I wanted to do that or an Around the World video remake with some of my students at a talent show one year, because I'm sure you guys know the Around the World video.
Oh, that's a great video.
Oh, that's
so
a fantastic video. Oh, it's so good.
It is so cool. And it I mean, if you get a video that matches music, you can't get anything more definitive of that idea than that video and that song.
Well, and that's back in the era of the Criterion collection of music videos, like Spike, like they were directors, they were legitimate directors who were directing music videos. And I can't remember the woman who directed Around the World, but it's that type of vibe. So
if only video producers and directors had a platform that they could put their art on.
Yeah, right.
Well, it still happens on YouTube. I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson works with Radiohead and The Smile on their videos, but I did have one question, and this is probably more towards Bert, but everyone can chime in if they want. So if you look at the totality of Daft Punk's singles, okay, which ones would you say are definitively the turkey cutlets?
You know, it's funny. Like, you started off the question so serious, and I was like, "There's something's coming. Like, I can feel it coming." From this album, or you're saying in the totality of all of their work?
Yeah, and keeping in mind, a turkey cutlet is something you should probably eat more often, but it's, according to you, wasn't it?
So, no, I was saying that no, a turkey cutlet is something that you don't eat often, but when you do, you're like, oh, why don't I eat this more? Because it's really good. That's a great question, Ryan. Like I can tell you that from an album perspective, Homework is that way for me. I listen to this album fairly regularly. I listen to Random Access Memories fairly regularly. So it's Homework is probably my least listened to Daft Punk record. That's a good question.
And you know, there's a lot of people that know this music well. So listeners, if you're at home and you're contemplating this question, you know, send us your turkey cutlets of Daft Punk. You can email us at 100albums at Bertislow. That's BERTSLOW .PORN.
.xxx.
I do legitimately have a question about our email address since we're just busting your balls.
Yes.
Why is it Bert is slow? Like,
because that's a good question, Ron.
I mean, was it a day of lack of self-confidence, Bert? Like, why?
This is Secrets of the Podcast secrets. So I own several URLs, several vanity websites, right? So admissionsdude.com, bertislow.com, etc. When I went out and I got 100albumspodcast.com, which is our website, folks. Please come visit our website, 100albumspodcast.com. I would have to pay extra money to get an email address associated with it, but I already had for my own websites the capability to create email addresses. So 100albums at bertislow.com, BERTISLO.com, which is a nickname that I had in college. That's all it is. So that's why the email address is associated with that URL. Also, 100albumspodcast.com is a really long URL for someone to type in as an email address. So I thought, well, I'll just use Bertislow because it's shorter. So
right.
This has been Podcast Secrets of the Podcast.
Yeah, I love this. I love this. By the way, if you do write to the Bertislow email address, we are not spelling it out, but it is ONEHUNDREE. You got to type the whole thing out. 100 albums podcast. It takes.
It's almost like Ryan is actively discouraging people to email us. It's great. It's so great.
Like, I want to email, but I'm just so confused.
I don't know which one is it. Go to the website.
If you're
poor,
so
back to your original. Oh, go ahead, Ron.
I was going to say, if you're poor at spelling, it's 100. HUNERT.
100 albums.
100 albums.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I'm still stuck on the turkey cutlet question, Ryan. So we'll have to do a mini. I'll have to get back to you on that one. That's interesting. That's it, guys.
I got one thing more.
Oh, go ahead, Drew.
Did you know that the breakdown section from Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger was used by the TV show that I love, How It's Made, as their theme song?
I
heard that.
It's the older version of How It's Made. I think they changed it. But yeah, I don't know when it occurred to me. It was years ago. Again, with my daughter Sage, another shout out to Sage. We would watch that show a lot too. Big nerd here. But yeah, their show is the breakdown section. And I put money on it. If it's not, then it's a really hardcore ripoff. But
That's
amazing.
I thought I heard that, but I was like, it's close, whatever. Damn,
that's crazy.
I love that show.
Yeah, starting season 9 of Walker Texas Ranger was superheroes as the theme as well. So
Oh, off the rails. We're
There's
off the
no-
rails here.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, it's all good. Anything else, Drew?
That's it.
That's
All
it.
right.
All right, gang. Hey, go out and listen to Discovery or watch Interstellar 5555, The Story of the Secret Star System by Daft Punk, and let us know what you think. You can write to us. Did I mention there's an email address? You can write to us at 100albums@bertislo.com. That's 100albums at BERTISLO.com. You can connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at 100 Albums Podcast, or visit our website at 100albumspodcast.com. Join us next week as we chat about the Pixies and their 1989 release, Doolittle. It's going to be a great conversation. As always, guys, thanks so much. Lovely chatting with you.
Always.
All right. Have a good week, guys.
We'll see you next week.
Bert, about
Yes.
the website.
Yes.
It needs to have a contact landing spot.
It doesn't have one?
No, so when the website, it's only it's in the about us section.
Oh,
Not
you're
actually-
right.
And so if people do actually follow our instructions, especially since I keep intentionally saying the email address wrong, it's going to be hard for them to find how to contact us.
My hope is that one day after you doing this for so long, Ryan, Bert actually fucks it up.
Himself.
Oh, I got to tell you, I have it written down in one of my notes. And so every time it comes up, I'm like, 100 albums. Because I'm afraid I'm going to.
So yeah, Bert, the only place to get our email address is on the story, which is not intuitive.
I'm creating it as we speak.
Sorry, not trying to nitpick.
No. That's good feedback.
I had said it wrong so many times. I literally went to our website to find it and couldn't.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.